Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing here with a fight preview for Artur Beterbiev versus Anthony Yarde. And we have a little bit of fight info here. Of course, it's Beterbiev versus Yarde taking place at Wembley Arena in London, England. This will be airing on BT Sport in the UK and on ESPN in the United States in the light heavyweight division with Beterbiev's IBF, WBC, and WBO 175-pound titles on the line. Now, in terms of my initial thoughts here, I think this is a fairly interesting fight for the beginning of the year. It's one of those fights that kind of intrigues me because I think the atmosphere there in London is going to be pretty good with kind of a local boy taking on a legitimate world champion. Always kind of an interesting fight to me, just to kind of see that dynamic of the crowd being in there for the underdog who has a shot. He is a puncher. He has at least a puncher's chance. So it's interesting in that respect. What's more, you kind of had the dynamic of what it means to each fighter. You know, for Beterbiev, you kind of wonder, is this that kind of banana peel sort of fight? You know, the odds would suggest no, because he's a pretty wide favorite. But at the same time, he is in against a puncher. And you have to remember that early in this fight, I think, is when you might see anything kind of interesting or spectacular from Yarde. Yarde is a bit of a front runner, it would appear. You know, he can tire later in fights, but his fights last usually around 3 to 4 rounds, and that's when he's his most explosive. You know, he hasn't gotten a knockout past 7 rounds. Coincidentally enough, Beterbiev has been hurt in fights, usually early on in contests. I think the 2 times he's been dropped as a professional have taken place in the first couple of rounds. So you wonder how the beginning of this fight will affect Beterbiev. From Yarde's perspective, you kind of wonder if this is his last shot near the top of the division. You know, he had that shot against Sergey Kovalev earlier in his career where he almost got the stoppage, but ultimately ended up getting stopped himself in his only other world title challenge. Now, coming into his own here a bit more, maybe with a bit more experience, a bit more seasoning, you wonder if this would be his best chance, but also last chance. So there's quite a bit of a dynamic for him there as well that's interesting to me at the very least. And then overall, you just kind of wonder what sort of fight will this be? You know, there's some interesting styles clashes here with the more kind of sit back and counter style of Yarde versus the more attacking style of Beterbiev. Both of them solid punchers. Both of them have been down before in their career. So again, an interesting dynamic and a fight that I think will have some potentially interesting moments as it wears on. Now, in terms of what's at stake here, I think for both of them, it's pretty obvious here. All of that gold. It matters in the sport, especially for both. I think for Beterbiev, it gives him something to bargain with. He's not the biggest star in the sport. He hasn't had that career-defining fight just yet. Having said that, if you want to get to anywhere at 175 pounds, it kind of runs through Beterbiev as he has 3 of the 4 major titles, or 5, however you want to look at it. You kind of need to go through him if you want to, see about being the best at light heavyweight. And for Yarde, this sort of adds legitimacy to him. You know, he's a fighter who, at times, people will say has gotten a lot of softer touches in his career. Being able to win this gold will certainly legitimize him a lot more and then give him all of these other opportunities moving forward. Both of them, of course, will have those opportunities. You're going to have shots at a potential unification with Dmitry Bivol there, even potentially fighting a guy like Canelo if he happens to move up to light heavyweight once more. This is just a fight that can potentially open a lot of doors for both fighters, of course, if they are successful. This is also one of those sort of legacy building fights, where if you're a guy like Beterbiev, you travel across the world to fight in kind of foreign land in your opponent's backyard and you still beat him. And of course, if you're Yarde, this completely alters how fans and how, potentially historians are going to view your career if you're able to pull off this upset and win these titles. If it's Beterbiev, you keep the Bivol fight hot. There's a lot on the line for you in that respect. You can keep rolling, and if you win and happen to win by stoppage, all the better, because it's going to continue to kind of add to that legend of you knocking out 19 of 19 opponents, staying perfect as a professional, and moving into a unification fight with another unbeaten fighter that just has a lot of appeal if you're able to win this fight that way. What's more, it can kind of help grow that fan base, not just there obviously locally in England, but just in general, the fact that you're traveling, you're on the road, you're willing to take these sort of risks and challenges. That's really the only way you can grow a fan base if you're a guy like Beterbiev with, all due respect to him, he's a talented, exciting fighter, but he isn't a big trash talker. He doesn't have a mastery of the English language. He needs to produce in the ring consistently to build his star. And for Yarde, again, this changes your career. You're completely viewed differently if you're able to win this fight. This makes you go from what a lot of people would deem as an also-ran to a legit top-level fighter. How well you can do for the rest of your career is almost incidental. At this point, at the very least, it adds a wrinkle to your career that you would not have otherwise. You need to win this fight to do that, though. You would become a huge star in England on top of that, and that's certainly something that's very important because there's a lot of money to be made there if you take care of your career, which again, to be fair, he's done so thus far. He has had a very good career considering he hasn't quite gotten it done at the top. What's more, because you're a mandatory challenger, there's no rematch. So you have many options available. You can take, sort of a coming out party fight after the fact, make quite a bit of money, and I'm sure you'd sell out another arena there because, again, they'd love to see an English fighter having dethroned a world champion. So you have plenty of options being the winner if you're Yarde as well. If you're to lose in your Beterbiev, this will be a tough climb back, to be perfectly honest. Again, as mentioned, you're not a huge name. You could become something of a bigger risk than reward to a lot of other fighters who just don't feel as though they need that kind of trouble. You also have to factor in that you're 38 years of age. You might not necessarily have the time necessary to rebuild. You might be declining, what's more. So it's really a tricky position where you have to continue to roll, or you really might have a big task at hand trying to rebuild your, at this point, hurt career if you are to lose this fight. For Yarde, as I kind of alluded to earlier, it might mean that he's done with major chances in the sport of boxing. I'm sure he could potentially get something here and maybe a domestic fight or something along those lines. It's not to say that he has to hang up the gloves, but can you really picture him getting much done at 175 at that point if he's to lose this fight? Answers are probably no. He's a bit too big in terms of body to move down to super middleweight safely, in my opinion. Probably too small to move up to cruiserweight, so he's really going to be a man without a home country here and basically done at the top level of 175. So it's hard to see him there, and a loss would certainly kind of raise those kind of questions about his career. But in any event, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. How do you view the fight? Who do you think wins? Let me know all of that down in the comment section below. Of course, I'm going to leave a link in the description box for my prediction for Beterbiev versus Yarde. You can check that out. Love if you guys did, of course. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB. You can email me at junboxing@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you there. Also, check out junboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, news, all that good stuff. And as always, until next time.